Nothing Personal starts in 30 seconds. It's just business. This is Nothing Personal.
Here you go. Here you go.
Nico. That's the Nothing Personal word of the day. It is Tuesday, May 13th, 2025, and there is no happier person on earth this morning than Nico Harrison. Nico Harrison, the beleaguered head of basketball operations for the Dallas Mavericks, having suffered through a trade went bad, viral and bad, telling us that I love the trade. I didn't realize any of you liked Luka this much. I didn't realize it would be such a big deal, but defense wins championships. We've got Anthony Davis. We're a better team, not just for now, but for later. And people leaving Dallas in droves, dropping season tickets. Mark Cuban furious. The team not performing to the point that they were in the NBA lottery. Now, they weren't so bad because they only had a 1.8% chance of getting the top pick. They had an 8.5% chance of moving up, which they had never done in their lottery history, but only 1.8% of getting the top pick. So the NBA lottery starts 7 p.m. live. It's a TV event. There's no, is it dibbing, Coca? There's no dibbing going on between Mark Tatum and the players, even though they have players there. And there is, why they're there is funny to me. They want to see where they're playing, except only Cooper Flagg knows where he was going to play, wherever the first pick was. Utah, Charlotte, Wizards, 14% chance of their tank working. And all I kept thinking the whole time is Cooper Flagg in Washington, NGTH, baby. If Jordan still owned the Hornets, maybe there's a chance the Hornets would get the first pick, but nah, I don't see that happening. The Jazz, that's possible. The Jazz have been good, never won a title. Utah is a burgeoning sports town. Trying to get a Major League Baseball team, just got a hockey team. The Mammoths. I think they just named their hockey team the Mammoths. That's exciting. So I thought that was a possibility. It didn't occur to me that the Dallas Mavericks would win the lottery. So what they do is they've got ping pong balls. Now, they used to do it in front of everybody. You remember Patrick Ewing, it was envelopes in a big tin that David Stern would stir, and then the Knicks envelope was stuck to the bottom because it was Patrick Ewing, and the NBA needed the Knicks to be good. This was the mid-'80s, and so the envelope is stuck to the bottom of the container, and then Stern picks it out, and look, the Knicks have the number one pick. And I am not a conspiracy theorist. I'm not going to stand up here and tell you that the NBA lottery was rigged. I am going to tell you it is beyond comprehension that the Dallas Mavericks got the number one pick because of math. 98.2%, which of course is 1.8% bloody ineffective. So the Mavericks get this pick, and all of a sudden a lot of weird stuff started happening. Everything that we were told about the Mavericks ends up being a little different than what we were told about the Mavericks. So Nico had come out and said it's all about defense. It's all about winning championships. Rick Welts, their CEO, came out and talked about why the trade was made, how it made sense, et cetera, et cetera. But then when interviewed after winning the lottery, he actually said it just feels like a reversal of fortune, like of epic proportions to us. Now, the reversal of fortune, is he referring to fans being all excited and sponsors and season ticket holders wanting to get back in to watch Colonel Flagg play? Now, he is an 18-year-old who can play on both sides of the ball. He's long. He can shoot. He can move without the ball. He can dribble. He can rebound. He can block shots. He can pass. He can play defense. I'm not exactly sure what skill he doesn't have. Putting him with Kyrie Irving and Anthony Davis, it certainly makes the Mavericks better. The opportunity to trade the first pick is there if they want to maybe see if they can get Giannis, which they're not going to trade Cooper Flagg. You would not trade Cooper Flagg for a 30-year-old Giannis. It just does not make sense from a franchise standpoint, given where the rookie scale is versus where Giannis is. None of that just makes sense. But it's funny how something that was bad, which you pretended was good, then becomes bad, so you can have a frame of reference. A frame of reference to show your fan base that now it's good. The games that we play, it really is something. The other thing that is fascinating about the lottery is what could have been for the Miami Heat. You see, the Miami Heat would have had the Dallas Mavericks pick if the Miami Heat had not made the playoffs. And the play-in tournament doesn't count. So the Miami Heat had to win 2 games on the road, in Chicago, in Atlanta, in order to get swept by Cleveland, who's now down 3-1 to Indiana. And when that all happened and the Heat became the 8th seed, the Mavericks kept their pick, which has turned into, up 10 spots from 11-1, the number 1 pick in the draft. So you say to yourself, should the Heat not have made the playoffs? And that is the part of the conversation I want to have about the concept of tanking, about the concept of what basketball does, what baseball does, in order to stop tanking or to mitigate the direct correlation between tanking and getting the number 1 pick. Because both baseball and basketball have made it so there's no percentage difference between having the number 1 pick, 2 pick, or 3 pick. If you've got the 1, 2, and 3 worst record, you have the same percentage chance of the first pick. The difference is in what your percentage is to be top 4. It's like a 52% chance if you're the Hornets, Jazz, or Wizards that you'd be a top 4 pick. And then it's a 14% chance that you'd be the number 1 pick. Is that enough? And my answer is yes. The reason why teams rebuild, retool, reset, tank, it's really not tanking for Tua. It's really not that anymore. What it is recognizing what good sports executives have known for a long time, that being in the middle is the worst place you can be in any league. You either need to be getting better or getting worse. You either need to be good or bad. But winning 80 games in baseball, being an 8 seed in basketball, while occasionally you'll get an upset like the Knicks beating the Heat back in '99, in general, it doesn't benefit your team. The problem is that most executives are not interested in the difficulty in tanking, because to do it right, it is sustained periods of losing without any sort of guarantee that it actually will turn around. So what you do is you try to figure out with your owner what is in the best interest of the franchise and how quickly, if you do go into tank mode, can you turn it around? And what you don't say to yourself is, hey, we could get the number 1 pick, and that number 1 pick would make the difference. It would speed up our rebuild. You have to look at it like the math is not going to work for you, because there's an 86% chance, if you are the Washington Wizards, that you're not getting the first pick. Therefore, tanking for it does not make mathematical or analytical sense. You're going to hear a lot of talk today about the Dallas Mavericks, about the lottery. It was all over Twitter about whether it was rigged and how it would be rigged and whether or not this is a gift for the Dallas Mavericks and the Adelson family for the price they paid, trying to increase some of the PR and improve some of the PR. And I would argue that there would be a far better place for Cooper Flagg to be in order to help the NBA, and Dallas is not that place. When you look at who is in the lottery, which teams, I would argue the San Antonio Spurs by pairing Flagg with Wembanyama would be very beneficial to the league. And I would tell you that having him in Philadelphia, while that would make me crazy, would be beneficial to the league because that is also a market and a team with another oft-injured superstar, Embiid, where there would be an opportunity for greatness through June. So we'll see if it all worked. In the meantime, that wasn't even the biggest news in the NBA yesterday. And I'm not even talking about what happened in the games. I'm talking about when it came out that Shams, who is the insider of the NBA, who releases information because people give it to him, came out yesterday and said that Giannis is willing to consider franchises outside of Milwaukee. Wow. Epic. Let me explain what this means. Giannis is signed to play in Milwaukee. Every year we get the same situation where Giannis is saying, do I want to be here? Do I not want to be here? Is this the best place for me to be? Should I sign? Should I not sign? If I do sign, do I want to stay? Meanwhile, the Bucks have had no luck in the playoffs since they won the championship in 21. They've been eliminated in the first round the last 3 years. The Bucks are salary cap screwed because they have really no ability to do anything because of the way they put their team together and the acquisition of Lillard, and they're simply not good enough. It has nothing to do with firing Budenholzer, bringing in Doc Rivers. It really has nothing to do with any of that. It has nothing to do with trading Middleton. It has nothing to do with anything other than they've been passed. And so if you're the Milwaukee Bucks and you're looking at your salary cap and you're looking at the makeup of your team, you have no moves. Lillard's Achilles is torn. He's out for next year. The only hope you have is by reallocating Giannis's money and getting back into the free agent game. So why would Giannis let it be known through an insider that he's willing to be moved? Because Giannis believes that by doing that, he can then control his own destiny and that he can tell the Milwaukee Bucks where he would be willing to be traded. If you are the Milwaukee Bucks, you have a very important job to do this offseason, and that is to not let Giannis control what you do with your personnel. If you are the Milwaukee Bucks, you are putting together trades just like you do every single offseason. Every team does it with all of their players. You've got a book of which players would get what return and what return you're looking for from every team for every player. It doesn't take as long as you think. If you're the Bucks, you are going, whether it is the Rockets who have so much capital, the Thunder have capital, the Spurs have an opportunity to trade for him as well. People are thinking that the Heat could move Bam and Tyler or some combination to get Giannis. Every team is trying to figure out what we would give, how it would work to get Giannis. If you're the Bucks, it's quite simple. You make your best trades and you call those teams and you say, I would do this in a trade for Giannis. If you are countered in any way, you do not move off your request. Even the Spurs, who have the 2nd and the 14th pick in this year's draft and all the different young players who could put together such an unbelievable package in order to team Giannis with Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox, if it's not exactly what the Bucks want, they're not forced to do it. While Giannis's agents may think they are, because if they keep Giannis, they're not going to be good and they're going to be stuck with the team they have not performing in the playoffs. The reality is that when you've got 2 years left on a deal that you are signed, which is what Giannis has, for getting the player option in his 3rd year, which he was never going to pick up. The reality is the Bucks have no rush, no urgency, no need to give leverage to any other team just because Giannis let it be known that he would consider a trade. If you get a trade done with another team, you present it to Giannis and you say, are you in or are you out? Doesn't matter to us. In, out. And if he's out, all right. And if you have another trade with another team that is just as good, that you want to do just as badly, then you go back to Giannis and say, all right, we got a second one, in or out. Why doesn't that happen? Why is it that teams like the Heat feel that they had to trade Jimmy Butler because he had no joy playing in Miami, or that he was so angry they traded him because they couldn't stand having him on the team, no matter what Pat Riley said at his press conference? Jimmy Butler, he couldn't have left fast enough. Teammates, front office, executives, coaching staff, everybody was done with Jimmy Butler, which is what happens with Butler. Everyone's happy to get him and everyone's happy to lose him once a period of time has passed. And what is summarily dismissed by people in our profession as the era of player empowerment, players don't get to be empowered without owners letting them become empowered. They don't get the empowerment by definition, simply because how collective bargaining works, how it works when you're an employee instead of an employer. You can threaten all you want. You can threaten to unionize. You can threaten to walk off the job. You can threaten not to play well. You can threaten anything you want. None of it moves the leverage over to the player's side. So Milwaukee's got to be super smart about this. Do I think they will be? No. I think Giannis will get traded. I have a wait to see already on the books that he will get traded before the end of next season. But the fact of the matter is there is no rush, even though it will be the biggest offseason story. It'll be bigger than whoever wins the title. It'll be bigger than the Mavericks drafting Cooper Flagg. It will be everywhere. The Bucks should not allow that to change their strategy, because if they do, they're going to end up stuck in this middle position where they still are today. I was watching the Knicks game last night, and my pick of the day, we'll get to that later, was the Knicks getting 5.5 or 6.5 from the Celtics. It was a huge game 4 last night. But what people are going to talk about is not that the Celtics blew a 14-point third quarter lead. They're not going to talk about how good Jalen Brunson is. I'd like to talk about that for a couple of minutes. But the biggest story coming out of that game is what happened to Jayson Tatum. Jayson Tatum suffered a non-contact lower leg injury, and it is clear to everyone as soon as it happened that it is a torn Achilles. When it is announced that that's the case, Jayson Tatum is going to be not just out for the playoffs, he's going to miss all of next year as well. It is a huge loss for the Celtics. They will not be able to defend their NBA World Championship. They're going to lose this series to the Knicks, who have a 3-1 lead right now with 3 chances to close out the Celtics. It is hard for me to imagine that the Celtics will be able to play as well as they have the last 2 games. And yes, it's true, the Knicks won last night, but the Celtics are shooting the ball well. Tatum was on fire. I'm going to get you some stats right now of what they did from 3, because I would believe it's the second game in a row where they were just outstanding. They shot, wait for it, only 18 for 48. Is that possible, Coca? At 37.5%, close to their season average? They must have had a horrific second half, because when it started, Tatum, Derek White, they just weren't missing. And what we said is if the Celtics do that 4 times, they're going to win the series. If they don't do it, then they're going to lose the series. Tatum actually was 5 for what he started with. He went 7 for 16, but he started off much hotter than that. But in the fourth quarter, he got hurt. Tatum is in the middle of a 5-year, $313 million contract that they signed, but only kicks in starting next season. And he's going to get $54 million next year not to play. You don't not sign players because you're worried they're going to get injured. Tatum has been phenomenal in that regard, but it just shows you what the risks are when you sign a player and what can happen and how quickly a team's fortunes can change. You knew it was bad immediately because he went down, and it wasn't normal Tatum going down with his coach saying, just get up. This was something major. He could not put any weight on it when he was taken off the court, and he ended up using a wheelchair because that's what happens when you tear your Achilles. Yet the Celtics came out and said, we don't know anything. Joe Mazzulla in his post-game press conference, I don't know. I just know it's a lower leg injury. We'll get more information tomorrow. Do you think, having listened to Nothing Personal for 1,275 episodes, that that's true? Do you think that the team doctor wasn't looking at Tatum immediately and could recognize immediately that it was a torn Achilles? Do you not think that the owner wanted a report immediately, and that if an MRI was required, that they could get an MRI immediately, like right after the game? No, let's let the swelling go down. Let's sleep on it. Maybe it won't be as bad. When an Achilles breaks, remember when Aaron Rodgers' Achilles tore and you saw it roll up his leg on his forced snap after becoming a Jet? It is, according to team doctors, a torn Achilles is one of the easiest things that you can diagnose without an MRI. What an MRI does is confirm it, but it doesn't really diagnose it. Now, that's different than a torn ACL or a torn in your knee or a UCL in a pitcher's elbow. Doctors can meet and examine your pitchers, and they look to see whether your pitcher has full extension, and they feel around in there. They get told what the pain was, what it felt like, what it sounded like. But an MRI is required to see what level of tear it is in the UCL and the elbow, or what the knee looks like, etc. What the MRI for the Achilles will do, because I've been a part of this, it will show the tear, but you have knowledge of it before it happens. So what do the Celtics do? Well, I guess they have to lean on Jalen Brown, who's about to make $53 million next year. I guess they have to lean on the ability of this team to try to continue or recover from a 3-1 deficit. But it's a devastating loss for the Celtics. But what's worse for them, and as a team executive, my thought would be in this order. I would think about next year before even thinking about this year's playoffs. Because while a player can get hurt this time of year and be out for a month, or you can lose in an upset, or it can just not be your year because you don't shoot well for a period of 4 games out of 7, you dismiss that as part of the game, but you always know you've got next year. I remember when players would get Tommy John, my biggest thing is not, oh my God, he's out for this year. My biggest thing is, oh, he's out for next year. And that's got to be the feeling with the Celtics right now, that Tatum being gone for next year is devastating for them. Someone asked me, Coca, I got a text that was interesting to me about the Tatum injury. Someone said, is that going to change the purchase price for the Celtics? Will Bill Chisholm no longer want to pay $6.1 billion, going up to $7.3 at the end of the step transaction when their current governor, Wick, steps away in a couple of years? Is that really a thought that people are having, or is it just this friend of mine? Because never, when you are selling a team, never does an existing contract or the existing performance of your team in any way correlate to the purchase price. The Celtics did not get 6.1 because they won the championship last year. It is about revenue. It's about market. It's about ego premium. It's about all the things that are measured, none of which have to do with whether you have bad contracts on the team, whether your team is underperforming, overperforming, or just downright stinks. I think the best example of that is the Cowboys. Their value keeps going up, and they've stunk for this century, and it has not in one way impacted what that value would be. So for those of you concerned that all of a sudden the Celtics transaction will not go through, it is going to go through. You, of course, should be concerned about what's going to happen with the Celtics next year without Tatum. And as far as this year's playoffs, it's over. Because when you've got Jalen Brunson, who is this good. Think about what he did. And this is a debate that Coke and I had before the show. Although, Coke, I got to tell you, it's not really a debate when you ask a question and you want to have a discussion and you follow it up by saying, well, the answer is Jalen Brunson's the best Knick of all time, period. Like, there's no discussion. Well, that, of course, is the whole point of the sports debate, because there is a discussion. I'm not sure if I had a number one pick where I was drafting Knicks for an all-time squad, am I taking Jalen Brunson first? Forget it. Even though he just did join Walt Clyde Frazier, who I probably would take first, but really, if I'm building a team, I would take Patrick Ewing first. Jalen Brunson had 35 plus points, 10 plus assists, and 5 plus rebounds. Guess what? Only Walt Frazier's done that, and now Jalen Brunson. The Knicks did get production from Karl Anthony Towns. They got production from Bridges, though not 5 number one pick type of production. But they did get a balanced attack on the Celtics, and they were winning that game before Tatum even got injured. But going into a game 5 in Boston, you got to believe the Knicks have some level of confidence, having won there twice already and wanting to get this series over with as quickly as possible, because you don't want to give the Celtics life. And that's really the same thing with what the T-Wolves are going to do with the Warriors. They are going to want to end this series in 5. They are the far superior team. As a matter of fact, Anthony Edwards and Julius Randle are both better than anyone currently playing for Golden State. And that means currently playing, so I'm not counting Steph Curry, who was injured. Did we have an official wait to see, Coca, that Steph Curry's done for the season? I meant to do that, and I don't remember whether I did as soon as he hurt his hamstring, because he was done for the season. They're saying it may have only been a week. The Warriors won't make it the week. And if you watched the late game last night, I do have a very simple question about playoff Jimmy. Where was he? How does that work? How does it work that he shot 5 for 9 and scored 14 points? He told us, literally, he told us that when playoff Jimmy needs to be there, playoff Jimmy's going to be there. And if he needs to get his teammates involved, to get his teammates involved. You think you need playoff Jimmy without Steph Curry when you need to get a victory, not to go down 3-1 to the Wolves? Just throwing it out there. Pretty convenient. Maybe playoff Jimmy will come back for game 5, but I don't think so. That series is over. The T-Wolves are going to end up going to the conference finals, 2nd year in a row, first time in franchise history they've gone 2 years in a row to the conference finals. Hard to imagine that the winner of the Nuggets-Thunder series won't win the conference, but that said, do not sleep on the T-Wolves. When Anthony Edwards is going the way he's going and the type of player he is, they're hard to beat. All right, when we come back, we're going to review the new movie on Netflix, the new Vince Vaughn movie. I can't wait to talk about it with you. And then we're going to talk about upfronts. We'll do all of that after the break. Welcome back to Nothing Personal. Thanks for joining us live 8 a.m. every day. If you're listening after that, thank you. If you're watching on DraftKings Network, thank you. But if you're on the Nothing Personal with David Samson YouTube channel, please hit subscribe because it matters. And thanks for joining us. I watch a movie every day, and a new movie on Netflix just dropped. I think it may have just dropped yesterday when I watched it, or Sunday. I can't remember. It's called Nonnas. Nonnas is the name of Italian grandmothers in the movie who cook Nonnas. Are you sure it's Nonna, Coca? I call it Nana because Papa, Nana, Nana, Nona. I'm going to say Nana. All right, fine. We'll start the segment over. All right, 4869. I watched a movie the other day that just came out on Netflix called Nonnas. It stars Vince Vaughn and a bunch of amazing actresses playing cooking grandmothers. Susan Sarandon is in the movie. Brenda Vaccaro's in the movie. Lorraine Bracco is in the movie. And it's a real story about an Italian restaurant in Staten Island started by a real guy named Joe, who starts a restaurant where literally these older women who are grandmas are the chefs in the restaurant. And he created this family restaurant where people come and they get to eat old Italian style home cooking. And against all odds, it also stars Sofia Vergara's ex-husband, whose name escapes me right now because it's a very long last name that I can't pronounce. And it's a story about how you start a restaurant, how it's really hard for a restaurant to make money, how no one shows up the first night the way no one showed up at the Flamingo at the end of Bugsy during their opening night. And then how all of a sudden everyone started showing up. And now it's become this thing that still is in existence in Staten Island. Vince Vaughn plays sort of the straight man where he has moments of humor. But the reason I liked the movie and the reason I suggest that you watch it is that who doesn't want to feel good watching a movie about food and a movie that makes you think about what it was like when you were eating home cooking with your grandmother and thinking about the possibility of reliving those moments in an actual restaurant? It's a brilliant idea, and it's still working today. The movie works mostly, the story works fully. It's called Nonnas. Let's talk about upfronts. Love it. It's become this whole thing. Now, it was always a situation when I was growing up when they would announce the big sitcom lineup, the big Tuesday night lineup, when Seinfeld was on or when Cheers was on. What an upfront is when networks meet with advertisers and they say, hey, look what we're doing. Look what we have. Spend your money with us. But it really is a total boondoggle excuse to get people together. But what's happened recently is so interesting. Networks are flying in the superstars of the superstars, and a lot of them are now sports figures. A-Rod was at an upfront. Derek Jeter was at an upfront. Tom Brady was at an upfront. And what you do is you make announcements, and what you hope is that it creates momentum and creates what I call BS. Now, it's not the BS you're thinking of. It's called budget shifting. Budget shifting is when a company knows that it's got a marketing budget or an advertising budget of $20 million, and they're going to spend $20 million in various places on various networks. And what networks are trying to do is to get the BS. Because what a BS does is it enables you to outpace your revenue projections. It enables you to deliver more to your shareholders and to your C-suite level executives that look what we've done. Look what we've done in development. Look what we've provided. Live sports has become a huge part of network strategy, a huge part of advertising income. And these upfronts were like shows. And guess what the biggest story coming out of the upfront was? It's not the fact that I'm going to lose my weight to see Coca, which I'm going to, because Tom Brady's coming back for year 2 as a Fox analyst, and I am blown away by that. I'm blown away that he can run the Raiders and be the #1 analyst on Fox. I'm blown away they didn't go back to Merlin Olsen. I'm blown away by all of it. But the biggest news was that Michael Jordan is going to become, wait for it, a special contributor to NBC. Greg Olsen, not Merlin Olsen. Merlin Olsen was that's a funny brain move. Merlin Olsen was a guy who called games for the NFL also, and an actor. I can't remember the series he was in, but I used to watch it as a kid, and it's totally escaping me. It's not Hunter, that's Fred Dreyer. Come on, David. Nope. Nary a synapse is firing at the moment. Why would NBC make such a big deal about Michael Jordan and the fact that they named him a special contributor? Michael Jordan did not grace anybody with his presence at the upfront. He did a taped statement that said, sorry, I can't be with you. The NBA on NBC was a meaningful part of my career, and I'm excited about being a special contributor to the project. I'm looking forward to seeing you all when the NBA on NBC launches this fall. Wow. Let me tell you why this is big news. Because Michael Jordan, in an era where very few people actually add eyeballs to the game, and while there are analysts and play-by-play people who are paid tons of money, but generally, as John Skipper will tell you on the Sporting Class, having run ESPN and having to pay huge salaries when he didn't think it was warranted in that regard, would tell you that in terms of moving the needle, it doesn't work. In terms of helping the upfronts, helping your ad sales, doesn't work. Is Michael Jordan a difference maker where it matters in the bottom line? Because what NBC is doing by signing this huge 11-year deal they signed with the NBA, the premium they did, they are involving Peacock in a way that NBC needs to in order to bolster Peacock, bolster the programming, keep people watching, subscribing. Michael Jordan does something that the others don't do. He actually does move the needle. How many people, and I don't mean viewers, I'm not talking to the viewers in the audience right now. I'm talking to those of you who run an advertising budget. You want to talk about budget shifting? How many people would want to be involved in NBC's production when Michael Jordan is doing something? He's either doing an interview, he's involved in some sort of boondoggle where you can golf with Michael Jordan, you can have dinner with Michael Jordan. It's what Fox did with Tom Brady. The majority of the money, if you think about it, at $35 or $30 million a year for that insane contract, it wasn't just to be the number one analyst at Fox. It was to do all the other stuff, like go to the upfronts, meet with advertisers, make appearances on behalf of Fox. Because you certainly don't think that Michael Jordan is a Bob Costas level special contributor. You don't think that Michael Jordan is going to be doing think pieces, do you? Where he's actually going to give his opinion on stuff, do you? He's historically someone who makes the middle look like the middle because he doesn't want people not to buy his sneakers. Do not look for Michael Jordan to become a polarizing political figure or to do the deep dives that we have come to learn and love from Pablo Torre on his award-winning Pablo Torre Finds Out. No, Michael Jordan is being paid by NBC to be the ultimate NBA figurehead. It's great work if you can get it, but only the tiniest of the tiniest tip of the top are able to get that type of deal. Just to be in Michael Jordan's halo. And it's not about whether Michael Jordan was a good executive, which he wasn't. The Hornets were terrible. Whether he was a good owner, he was, because he made a fortune selling the Hornets versus what he paid for it. It is the reality of what people will do to be in the vicinity of someone like Michael Jordan. I think it is an absolutely brilliant move by NBC, and I can't wait to see what his first project is. I've got a prediction, though. I do not think his first project will be a deep one-on-one with Cooper Flagg. All right, Coca, play me some music, please.
You know what I want? I want to talk to Samson.
So you want to talk to Samson. This is a very important part of the show. We still have 12 minutes left. We've got this. I need you to get into my Twitter at David P. Samson or email me at davidsamsonpodcast.com. Go on the website, contact me. I do see emails. We need questions. I can't tell you why exactly, other than to tell you that we do So You Want to Talk to Samson segments, but we do want questions from you. I like this one. David, your punctuation is mediocre, but David, when is it enough? Now the Dodgers want Tucker. Won't this impact the new CBA? Thank you for asking the question. I prefer hellos. How are you? How's your day? What's shaking? Say hi to Brett. There's all sorts of things I wouldn't mind to see in questions. Why did you ask this yesterday? It's because word came out that Kyle Tucker, who you recall was traded from the Astros to the Chicago Cubs. You may recall that Kyle Tucker has been an important part of the offensive resurgence of the aforementioned Chicago Cubs. You may recall that Kyle Tucker is the best free agent on the board next season, at the end of this season. You may recall that there is a big push for the Cubs to re-sign Kyle Tucker. What you may not recall is that when you are Kyle Tucker and his representative, you do not want one team bidding on Kyle Tucker. You want every team bidding on Kyle Tucker. But if you only choose two teams, you got to make sure one of them is the Dodgers. It is no surprise that the Dodgers are rumored to be in on Kyle Tucker. The Dodgers obviously have Shohei Ohtani's deferred contract to play with, where they're paying him $2 million now and $68 million later. The Dodgers have spent some of that money when they signed Yamamoto. The Dodgers would be helped by having Kyle Tucker. It would make their team that much better because they can use some of that to sign Blake Snell. They can use some of that to sign Tanner Scott. They can use some of that to sign Tyler Glasnow. But bringing in Kyle Tucker would be another example of the financial might that the Dodgers have and employ. But your question is, will it impact the new CBA? And what I assume you're referring to is whether or not it will embolden enough owners to demand a salary cap because the Dodgers seem to be getting all the free agents. I want to bring you inside an owners meeting where conversations like this happen. And the reason why most owners don't complain privately about what the Dodgers are doing is that their baseball people say to them, the Dodgers only have 26 roster spots. There are plenty of players out there available for us if you give me the payroll flexibility and the capability to sign free agents. As you know, you don't need to be a good GM to overpay to sign Shohei Ohtani or Kyle Tucker or Blake Snell. You need to be a good a good front office president of baseball operations to sign mid-level free agents or lower-level guys to minor league contracts with an invite to Major League spring training. You need to be good on the margins because that's what differentiates you from being a bad front office to a good front office. As a president of a low-revenue team, I was cognizant of the NL East and the payroll of the Phillies and the payroll of the Braves and the payroll of the Mets. And that's even before Steve Cohen got involved. But the reality is, I never went to our owner and said, why can't we be at 200? If we could only be at 200, I swear to God, we'd be better. I swear to God, we'd win more than 81 games. We'd win a second World Series. I never once said that. Because you've got to have the ability to build your team and allocate your resources across all 26 players in a way that a team gets put together to win. Kyle Tucker is obviously someone who makes your team better, but it depends on the price, whether or not that player is marked to market. Generally, top-of-the-line free agents can never be marked to market, where you give what the value is of the player and then decide whether or not that value is more or less than what your contractual obligation is to that player. There is no player who is worth $40 million, $50 million. They don't generate enough revenue, and we can talk about Ohtani separately if you like, but they don't lead to winning. Look at what happened with the Angels when they had Ohtani and Mike Trout. The reality is the Dodgers can allocate their payroll at whatever level they want. And you know that Max Muncy and Chris Taylor are not going to be on the Dodgers next year. They're going to come off the books. Michael Conforto making $17 million this year. They're not going to sign him to a long-term deal. He'll come off the books. When you are Andrew Friedman and you have an opportunity to sign a Kyle Tucker, and he's not a huge percentage of your total payroll, you're going to think about it. But if you're Kyle Tucker, you are spending your days and nights getting the Dodgers interested because it's the way to get Tom Ricketts of the Cubs to pony up even more. We'll find out what happens with Kyle Tucker, but in no way does an owner go to the commissioner and say, I'm now a no on anything but a salary cap for a new CBA, or I'm a no on a CBA unless it's got certain luxury tax levels that are lower than what they are now, or that the penalties are greater. And I'm doing all of that because of Kyle Tucker. The reason why you take a position as a team in a collective bargaining agreement negotiation, and when you're negotiating with the commissioner, the reason why you do that is because it's to the benefit of your team and how you operate your team in your market with the sort of payroll scale that you have for your team. It has nothing to do, and you're reading so much about this, but it has nothing to do with a specific player signing with a specific team. We're going to find out, though, but I'm going to be right. Nothing personal pick of the day. We had the Knicks plus 6.5 over the Celtics. That was a win. We talked about that game. Let's talk about the Edmonton Oilers, who were only minus 130 over the Vegas Knights. Not sure what happened there, other than we told you that Vegas would lose and that the Oilers would take a 3-1 lead in that series. They did. We are now 57-59. I've got one pick in baseball tonight. I was looking, Coca, just FYI, because I do this every day. I was looking at which games to pick. I was going through them, and you've got the Cavaliers favored by 7.5 over the Pacers. Donovan Mitchell you don't know whether he's going to play. There was just something. I don't see the Cavaliers losing a game 5 at home. On the other hand, the Pacers are the better team right now. They are very likely to win that series. I just didn't feel good about either side of that play. Game 5 tonight between the Nuggets and the Thunder is a must-watch game. But again, the line is weird. Oklahoma City's favored by 10.5. Not weird because DraftKings doesn't know how to set lines, subject to change. Just weird because Oklahoma could win by 30, but Denver could also win in Oklahoma City, or at least make it a close game. So I just didn't feel good enough about that game. So I went to the baseball slate, and I wanted to take the opportunity to talk about my friends in St. Louis. The St. Louis Cardinals are going with Sonny Gray tonight, and they are tremendous underdogs going against Luzardo and the Phillies. And Coca, I made a mistake here, and I apologize, because what the graphic is showing is that I have Luzardo and the Phillies minus 155, current odds, subject to change, over Sonny Gray and the Cardinals. The Cardinals are one of the hottest teams in baseball. They are outperforming expectations, where people were totally panicked and thinking the Cardinals were tanking. People were not buying tickets. The DeWitt family was telling you that there's nothing we can do. We don't have the revenue. Our TV deal got completely screwed. Therefore, we're sorry about our team. Meanwhile, they're playing great right now. This line is way too heavy. Sonny Gray has been performing in a way that he never could in New York, and the opportunity to take them and get plus money over the Philadelphia Phillies and their struggling offense, and Luzardo, who has a tendency to be really good or not, it was too good to pass up. So the Cardinals at 23-19 are only one game back of the Cubs, and we're going to take the plus money. Coca, that was my bad. This is when it goes bad at the end of a show. When I do something, I made a mistake in the rundown, and I end up taking the team that he doesn't do the graphic for. I apologize. The Cardinals are plus 136, and that is our nothing personal pick of the day. I want to end the show by going back to a quick thing on the lottery and reminding you that Cooper Flagg is about to become a Dallas Maverick. And I'm reminded of what the New Orleans Pelicans did when they won the lottery and had Zion Williamson. And I'm reminded of how excited the sales force was when they won the lottery. I'm reminded of what Nico Harrison and how happy Nico Harrison is that they won the lottery and how the Mavericks are going to try to do business. But then I remind you that Zion Williamson was at the lottery last night. He was the number one pick. He was supposed to change the fortunes of the Pelicans, make them perennial contenders, and they sent him to the lottery because the Pelicans stink because he's overpaid and is always hurt. Meanwhile, the Mavericks with Cooper Flagg got to get on the phone, look right in the eyes of their ticket holders and say, join us. It's just business. We'll be back tomorrow. This is nothing personal.